Hi guys, welcome back or welcome to DreamWorks Switch to Life. And in today's video, we're going to be discussing Dinotrux, a TV show that as of the day I'm recording this video is leaving Netflix permanently. So this is kind of a really bad time to say this because if you actually enjoy the review and you want to watch the show, you actually have to go and buy it off of something like Amazon or Vudu, since it will no longer be available on Netflix. At least that's going to be the case with the sequel series Dinotrux Supercharged. It's possible that the original series will stay on Netflix for a little longer, but with Supercharged leaving, I feel like now is a good time to discuss the entire show and my thoughts on it. So, Dinotrux, as the name suggests, is a combination of dinosaurs and construction trucks, which I honestly really loved. It was actually executed really well, and there's a lot of ways that this concept could have been messed up. Like, it was actually really bad in the books that it was based on, but when it came to the show, it was super awesome. Oh yeah, by the way, if you didn't know, this is actually a TV show that's based on a book series that DreamWorks actually bought the rights to in 2009 so they could turn it into a movie. But eventually, along the way in production, they decided that it would be better as a TV show, and I full-heartedly agree. Granted, the show could very easily have been turned into a movie trilogy since, well, the way that the show works is that every single episode tells its own unique story most of the time. But then, at the same time, it does have some overarching themes, but you don't necessarily need to watch every single episode to understand the full story. In fact, aside from maybe a few exceptions, you could literally just watch a random episode and still understand what's going on. But now let's talk about why this series is good. First off, the animation. The animation is awesome. In fact, it's almost as good as a full-on movie. And it's really helped by the fact that the characters' models are actually really detailed and super awesome. They have scuff marks, dents, and a bunch of other stuff because they're living in a harsh world. Rather than just going for simplistic, they actually try to showcase detail in every single frame of animation, and that's really awesome. Really shows how much care that they put into this. And speaking of the character models, I really love the world building of this. They definitely had a unique concept of trying to combine dinosaurs and construction trucks, and they did it super amazingly. I especially love the part about how the Dinotrux actually talk. They just move their mouths up and down. That's it. Which is actually really good because it shows that these are mechanical creatures that don't really have any mouths. They simply just have jaws on hinges, and that's really awesome. Yes, that does mean that the lip sync isn't really that great, but honestly, there's no lips to sync, so it's actually really cool what they managed to do, and probably a budget save on the animation. And then there's also the fact that each Dinotrux is different and unique and is able to stand out and be useful in their own ways. And there's literally dozens of different species. For instance, you have the Tyrannosaurus Trux or T-Trux, Ankylodumps, Cranosaurs, Doceratops, as well as their distant cousin Pliosaurs. Then there's also Stegosaurus, Sometrodons, Cementosaurs, Drillosaurs, Glufosaurs, Hydrodons, Liftosaurs, Crabcavators, and those are just the ones that can talk. The ones who can't include the Aquadons, Poundocerolophus, Rolodons, Dreadtrux, Scraptors, and their cousins the Desert Scraptors and Arctic Scraptors, and then there's also the Shreddodons. And then you got the flyers of the world, like the Pterocopters, Scrapodactyls, as well as their cousins the Stealth Scrapodactyls, not to mention the Discrapodons, and the giant spider shock arachnids. And that's not all, because dinosaurs aren't the only thing that inhabit this world. You got a bunch of tools that are extremely useful, like Rotilian rep tools, wrench tools, and their cousins hex wrench tools, and scrap tools, Not to mention the less intelligent tour tools, junk tools, slam tools, pick tools, toa constrictors, and then there's also the insects of the world, which include the washer wasps, the dragonflopter, spark bugs, and supercharged spark bugs, and bit bugs, stegosaur transmission pan bolt bug, lightning bit bug, K-lock nut bug, grease bee, screwsketos, gearwigs, drillipedes, and even a clamp. I might actually be missing a couple because, well, there's a lot to go through, but I think I got all of them. Let me know if I'm wrong. But yeah, like I was saying, every single species is unique, and that's really cool. And I know that there's a lot of other shows that tried to do this kind of concept. For instance, Cars on the Road, made by Pixar, tried to do this in one episode, and it was bad. Straight up bad. But I honestly love the world building of this TV show because it's extremely well executed and thought out, and it's really awesome what they managed to do. And honestly, being a TV show meant that they can introduce way more species than if this was just a movie or even a series of movies. And then there's the voice acting, which I thought was actually done really well. Granted, there are some voice actors who don't really try that hard compared to the others, but still, it was really good. My one complaint is that occasionally there's going to be an instance where the mouth-jaw opening doesn't really match up with the words, but that happens in pretty much everything. There's always going to be some animation errors. And then there's the music for this series. Sometimes it can get a little repetitive, but honestly, the music is really, really good, especially when it comes to the theme song. And in almost every single episode, there's a sequence where they say, "Let's trucks it up," or something like that. And then they end up building or constructing something, and while all of that is happening, some catchy music is playing in the background. It's mostly the same song, just with added twists here or there, but it's really good and super catchy, and, well, like I said, the music can be a bit repetitive, but it's still really good. And then there's the story, which sometimes is good, sometimes is bad, but that's to be expected when you're dealing with a TV show. The way that the show works is that every single episode is its own self-contained story, and occasionally they would add it together to make an overarching story, but honestly, that's like very few episodes out of the entire series. So I would say that almost every single episode has good writing that tells an amazing story, but when it comes to the series as a whole, a lot of it is mostly filler. Seriously, a lot of these episodes are just filler that don't really make an overarching story. Not to mention the fact that while a character might develop in some way in one episode, they'll have a regression in the next one, which is really stupid. So in season 1, we're introduced to our main cast, which includes Ty, a D-Structs, who is actually a really good guy. In fact, I would say that if there was a gold medal for being good, he would win it. He always tries to do whatever is best for everyone around him, and he always tries to share everything that he has. And then we also meet Revit, a rep tool who is actually extremely smart and incredibly brave. And thus, when Ty and Revit meet up, they become friends. And then Ty comes up with an idea that they could gather a bunch of Dinotrux to help defeat the main bad guy of the series, D-Structs, who is another D-Structs who rules over the crater. So Ty lost his home in the very first episode and is trying to find a new one. He comes across the crater, thinks it will be a great place to live, except D-Structs is already there and he doesn't share with anyone. He's a straight up bad guy, bully, and meanie. And he even tries to kill the Dinotrux on not one, not two, dozens of times. So to stand up to D-Structs, Ty comes up with a plan to gather a bunch of other Dinotrux, including Dozer, a Doceratops who's always grumpy and grouchy. I really like his character a lot. And then there's Tun-Tun, an Ankylodump who's basically a surfer dude who's always just living the moment. He loves to do tricks and he's always trying to have fun. And yes, he is a little on the dim side, but it's actually really funny what they managed to do with his character. Then there's Skaya, who's a Cranosaur that is kind of like trying to assert herself as the boss, but she's always willing to share the spotlight, and she's always there to pick up her teammates, both literally and figuratively, because, you know, she's a Cranosaur. And then there's Garby, who's basically a Stegosaurus who's not really that much of a fighter or a builder, but he's a rock expert who always tries to lend a helping hand, as well as add in a dozen fart jokes here and there and here, and I really don't like Garby's character.
Oops, sorry. I tend to gas off after a big meal. Won't happen again.
You know, that brings me to another point, the sound design of this series. I actually really enjoy that, because Garby doesn't just make a fart sound, he makes a mechanical honking noise every time he gasses off. And it's not just Garby. All of the Dinotrux have mechanical noises going on in some way, shape, or form, and it's really awesome what they managed to do with the sound design. I love it. But anyway, back to the story. With all of these Dinotrux coming together, they need more rep tools, so Revit decides to recruit the aid of Click-Clack, who is another Rotilian rep tool who's scared of everything, as well as a couple of wrench tools named Waldo, who, like Dozer, is extremely grumpy as well as very organized.
Can't you Dinotrux be more careful? This one's grumpy. I like him.
And Ace, who, like Tun-Tun, is a life of the party, but she's also extremely smart and able to be very focused when she wants to be. After building a home for themselves in a garage, they keep fighting against D-Structs as well as building more builds that make it so that they live in a safer crater, as well as making it a better place. And as the series progresses, D-Structs keeps trying to fight back against the Dinotrux, only to get beat up, so he recruits his own help in the form of a scrap tool named Scrap-It, who is a character I really love because he might be a little on the annoying side, but you gotta feel sorry for the guy. All he really wants is to collect a bunch of scrap, but as the series progresses, he ends up discovering that he actually enjoys working with D-Structs, and he always tries to do his best to serve D-Structs and is always seeking approval, which he never gets because D-Structs constantly smashes him for being annoying or failing at his job. But despite all that, Scrap-It still serves D-Structs extremely faithfully because I'm pretty sure that he has a man crush on D-Structs.
I still really enjoy working with you!
So the first season is mostly just setup, introducing us to the characters as well as the world and having them build a home for themselves. Then season 2, we see more fights against D-Structs and the Dinotrux, as well as introducing us to even more Dinotrux, but it's mostly the same as season 1. Except instead of a wrecking ball, D-Structs has a buzzsaw for a tail, which he later changes into a wrecking claw. Then we come to season 3, where the Dinotrux start making even more enemies, like Splitter, a Sawmetrodon, as well as Blade, a fellow Doceratops who decided to go evil. And then there's also a Pounder Saurolophus, who doesn't really talk that much, but essentially he just wants to pound everything in the world. D-Structs allies himself with these new enemies and makes it so that now the Dinotrux have a 4-on-4 fight. Okay, so at this point I have to give a very heavy disclaimer. I view a season as 13 episodes, and yes, I know that isn't actually accurate since the show currently has 8 seasons, 3 of which are Supercharged, 5 of which are the original. But the way I view it, you can just combine seasons 4 and 5 to form one season, as well as seasons 6 and 7 to form another season. So, for the sake of this video, I will be calling seasons 4 and 5 Season 4, and seasons 6 and 7 Season 5, and Season 8 Season 6. Okay, so Season 4 continues with the Dinotrux going on multiple adventures Superchargers outside of the crater and even being beaten and banished by the D-Structs gang. And they end up having to find their way back and take over the crater from D-Structs on multiple occasions, which, yeah, I find it really bad because the entire season just focuses on multiple episode-long arcs where the Dinotrux are sent outside the crater and have to make their way back. It does that over and over again. Kind of stupid. But at the very end of this season, they managed to banish D-Structs and his evil gang, and thus the gang decides to split up, and so D-Structs kind of just roams around, and then the Dinotrux discover a Dreadtrux. Now, a Dreadtrux is the biggest Dinotrux to ever live and is viewed by legend as a world ender, and they decide that the best thing that they can do is send the Dreadtrux outside of the crater. So they manage to bring the Dreadtrux outside the crater, but when it wakes up, it tries to make its way back inside the crater, and in the process, D-Structs manages to sneak his way back inside the crater as well, and then D-Structs and the Dinotrux team up so that they can help defeat the Dreadtrux, and they do that by trying to find a baby Dreadtrux egg, and when they do, the Dreadtrux leaves the crater in peace. So the series continues with Season 5, or rather, Dinotrux Supercharged Season 1, because, well, now it's kind of a sequel show because the show was supposed to end after just 52 episodes, but they decided to continue it with an additional 26, so there's 78. And the remaining 26 episodes are part of a sequel series called Dinotrux Supercharged. And it actually makes sense why they called it that, because in Season 5, which again is a combination of Seasons 6 and 7, or Supercharged Seasons 1 and 2, the Dinotrux discover a supercharger hive. Now, superchargers are supposed to be extremely rare, and they find an entire hive of them, which is really cool because that means that now, thanks to the superchargers, which provides a lot more energy as well as makes their engine more powerful, they can go faster, they work harder, not to mention they're stronger, and honestly, superchargers are just really awesome. So Season 5 is mostly just focused on the Dinotrux using superchargers to get stronger, faster, and have more complex builds, not to mention getting in trouble sometimes because of the superchargers, and also trying to keep the superchargers a secret from D-Structs. And then there's also a brand new character introduced named Z, who is a crescent wrench tool that lives in the wild all by herself, meaning that she's extremely well adapted for solitude and survival, not to mention being able to make her own parts out of wood and tons of other instincts that makes her a great addition to the team. A new character who is a T-Trux.
Wait, you know another T-Trux? I did not see that coming.
And this T-Trux is actually D-Structs' brother named D-Stroy.
Wait, D-Strux is your brother? I did not see that coming either.
So D-Structs and D-Stroy don't really get along that well. They're more the kind of brothers who bicker and compete. But the thing is, both of them are extremely smart and powerful, and they decide to team up together to take on the Dinotrux. And in the final episode of Season 5, they do just that. They trick the Dinotrux into making a bunch of builds out of helium ore, which is actually the main thing that Dreadtruxes eat. So the Dreadtrux comes back into the crater, and this time it's being controlled by Destroy using purple helium ore, and it ends up eating all of the Dinotrux's builds as well as their home, kicking the Dinotrux out of the crater and forcing them to live on the outside in exile. And in Season 6, which personally I think they should have called it Renegades, the Dinotrux spend their time as renegades trying to take down D-Structs and Destroy inside the crater from the outside in their hidden base. And at the same time, D-Structs and Destroy are constantly trying to find them so that they can actually destroy them with the Dreadtrux. But as the series progresses, we also learn that D-Structs and Destroy don't really get along that well, and they're getting tired of each other. And it's really cool that we actually get to see why D-Structs is so insistent on kicking Ty and the Dinotrux outside of the crater. He doesn't like to share territory, and now we know why. Because his brother is always trying to take charge. That's the reason why he doesn't like sharing, because he wants everything for himself. He doesn't want to share with anyone because he had a bad experience sharing with his brother Destroy. But D-Structs reluctantly works with his brother to try to take down the Dinotrux using their Dreadtrucks. That is until the end of the season when they run out of purple ore, at which point the Dinotrux manage to find some of their own purple ore and use it to lure the Dreadtrucks outside of the crater, making it so now they actually have a fighting chance to get rid of the D brothers. But when they do that, the D brothers lock themselves inside of the crater. So Ty comes up with an idea that they should dig through 2 miles of mountain in a tunnel, and obviously that would take forever if it weren't for one thing. Ty wants to use the Dreadtrucks to dig through the mountain so it only takes hours instead of years. And when that happens, Ty decides that he doesn't want to control the Dreadtrucks like Destroy was doing. Instead, he wants to simply befriend the Dreadtrucks, which is really good. And I love the way that they actually do that. They do a callback to the very first episode when a very small reptile named Revit decided to approach a large scary Trux named Ty. Now, Ty is that small reptile and the Dreadtrucks is the large scary Trux. So the Dreadtrucks digs them the tunnel, and then they fight against the D brothers trying to kick them out, and it looks like they're about to lose until the entire Dinotrux community, made up of literal hundreds of Dinotrux, decides to join together and fight back. Not just because they're trying to save their home, but also to repay the many favors that Ty and the Dinotrux did for them throughout the entire series, making it so that the D brothers are heavily outnumbered, and thus D-Structs comes up with a plan to kidnap Revit and threaten his life.
Out of my way! Not him! He's all yours!
And then he sees his opportunity to finally get rid of Destroy, and he leaves Destroy to be kicked out of the crater by the hundreds of Dinotrux. And at the same time, he drives off to a volcano where he plans to throw Revit in until Ty shows up, at which point Ty and Dstructs have a final battle one-on-one. And despite the fact that the Dinotrux, the main Dinotrux, decide to come and help him, D-Structs makes it so they can't. So Ty and D-Structs fight in a volcano one-on-one, and in D-Structs' rage, he just keeps trying to beat up Ty, and at the same time, Ty is just ready to accept that some Dinotrux simply can't be befriended. Throughout the series, even though we do see Ty and D-Structs fight over and over again, Ty has always been optimistic about maybe D-Structs could someday change, but unfortunately that just doesn't happen. And for the first time ever, he just decides to not fight. And in his rage, D-Structs accidentally hurls himself into the volcano, and he manages to grab onto the ledge. And Ty, being the good Trux that he is, decides to help save D-Structs. And when that happens, D-Structs, after 78 episodes of constant back and forth, finally accepts defeat and decides that instead of trying to get his crater back from the Dinotrux, he would simply move on to another crater where he wouldn't have to share with anyone. And so he and Scraplet leave to find a new place to live. Now, feel free to call me crazy, but I feel like the ending would have been better if he was so angry and stubborn that he decided to refuse to grab Ty's tail and thus fell to his death.
How in the crater did you do that? Let's just say, D-Structs defeated himself.
And thankfully, this isn't the kind of show that actually has death. Sure, there's lots of threats and definitely hints at death, but there's never actually any death whatsoever, since this is a show for kids. Unless, of course, you count mechanical failure, where the Dinotrux' parts keep failing and dying, and thus they need to get new parts to get fixed. But anyway, the series ends with the Dinotrux, all of them, forming a community and rebuilding all of the builds that were destroyed by the D brothers throughout the Renegade season. And thus the series ends. And honestly, I really enjoy this series, mostly due to its world building as well as the writing of each individual episode. Most of the episodes are good, but not all of them. And obviously, a lot of the episodes are filler that don't really add to the overall story. Yes, the series finale has a lot of callbacks to most of the episodes, but again, you don't even need to watch those to understand the actual series finale. In fact, I hate to say it, but you could probably easily turn the entire TV show into a trilogy of movies. But as a TV show, it adds to the world building, which I gotta say that I really enjoy, and not to mention the fact that there's just a lot of humor and good writing in every single episode, even if most of the episodes don't add to the series as a whole. But that's the end of my review. Honestly, Dinotrux was a really great TV show, and I'm sad to see it leave Netflix. But I really think that it's definitely something that is really good. The animation quality is almost as good as a movie, the music is amazing, as well as the voice acting, and especially the sound design, as well as the writing, which is really good for a lot of the episodes. But then the best part of the series is its world building. I really enjoyed that part. And with that, I hope you guys enjoyed this review. If you did, make sure that you like and subscribe so that you can keep up to date on all things DreamWorks, and be sure to ask any Dinotrux related questions you have down below in the comments, and I might be able to answer those questions in a future video. Or if you really want, you could just type in which of the Dinotrux species is your favorite. But with that in mind, I hope that you're all staying safe out there, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye bye.
This place will be spotless in no time.
Hey, watch where you're blowing that stuff. It's gonna make me...
Has anybody seen Revit?
He just left.